Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you again. It's Ian D'Agata, the curator, the creator, really, of MicroMegaWines, this new thematic area at Vinitaly that will be going from Sunday, April 2nd to Wednesday, April 5 this year. It's the second edition of MicroMegaWines that is located in Pavilion F, or the Organic Hall of the Vinitaly Wine Fair in Verona. The first edition was last year when we had 25 estates and 2 associations present with us. And it was such a success that it has grown to this year's second edition, which features 40 different wineries and 4 different wine associations. So there's really outstanding growth. And it shows that the message of MicroMegaWines has been understood, or at least that it's well liked. What is the message of MicroMegaWines? Well, it is exactly as the name of the area implies, and that is, it's about micro and mega, micro quantity and mega quality of wines. This is an area devoted to small estates who make small batch or small lot wines. It can also be actually open to bigger estates that make a lot of bottles, but they can only participate with a small batch wine. Perhaps they have a project whereby they make only 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 8,000 bottles of a wine from old grapes, old biotypes, or from a unique area, and therefore high quality wine in small amounts. It's also not open just to people who use native grapes. It's open also to people who use international grapes. We have producers who make wonderful Cabernet Franc wines and even an Alicante Boucher wine, a mono-variety Alicante Boucher, which is rare enough. And then, of course, we have many, many producers of native grapes, everything from the well-known Sangiovese and Aglianico to the less well-known Nascetta and Granazza and Tazzelenghe. So we're going to talk about that today with some of our guests. And I really look forward to meeting you all. I'll be there at the stand every day, except when I'm guiding the masterclasses. And there is a masterclass devoted to the MicroMegaWines every day at a set time. Every time there will be about 10 estates featured where the producer will be there and we'll talk about one of his wines. Then, of course, you can taste the rest of the wines at the stand in the Pavilion F where MicroMegaWines is located. So I look forward to seeing you there. Come by and say hi. I love to meet wine lovers and wine professionals. And if you like, we can go walk over to some of these estates together. Okay, so here we are. Let me introduce you to our estates today. Some super, super cool wineries and wines that are made. We are going to therefore begin with the Association of Tazzelenghe Producers, the so-called Tazzelenghe Team, represented here by the chief coordinator, the Dattimis Maniago estate in Friuli Venezia Giulia. We have with us Fabio Dattimis Maniago. And ciao, Fabio. Just to give you an idea how small the world of wine is, I saw Fabio yesterday in Rome because he was in Rome attending a course, and I was giving a wine class, and he came by and said hi. And here he is now back in his native hometown and talking to us by Zoom and to all of you. Anyways, to make a long story short, Dattimis Maniago is an estate that, like many in Friuli, makes wines from many, many different grape varieties, but especially still grows Tazzelenghe. And this estate and a few others only that Fabio will tell us about now are still growing Tazzelenghe. Tazzelenghe is a noble grape variety, typical of Friuli, Venezia Giulia, grows nowhere else. And it's very similar to Schioppettino and Refosco and Pignolo, but it is at the same time very different from those native Friuli grapes. There's only about 8 hectares left in Friuli Venezia Giulia, but Fabio can now probably correct me because I think that some people have started replanting it, thanks also to the efforts of the Tazzelenghe team and MicroMegaWines. And it's good because Tazzelenghe is a really wonderful, wonderful red grape. It has no business disappearing. And Fabio will tell us more about it. Fabio, tell us all you're doing.
Yeah, no, at the moment, it's about 8 hectares. You're right. I know that a couple of producers that with me, my winery and the others are planning to expand production. We plan ourselves to plant a bit of Tazzelenghe. So that's always good to hear, because 8 hectares is nothing at all. So when you're talking about rare wines and rare vines in Friuli, I think Tazzelenghe has to be mentioned, really. Tazzelenghe is very similar to Refosco. It's genetically, it's similar. It's from the same family of Refosco, and it has that distinctive tannins, very strong tannins. Tazzelenghe, the name comes from Tazzelenghe, that's dialect in Friulian. It means to cut the tongue, because of its very high acid content and its very aggressive tannins. When it's young, it has those distinctive characteristics. Right now, when you age it a bit, when you know how to care for it as well, it's not just a matter of time, not necessarily, it can become a great wine. As Jan correctly said, it's a wonderful wine, a very noble wine, very elegant. That's probably the difference I would point out compared to Pignolo, which is a wonderful wine that we grow, and it's very successful and it's very liked all around the world, not just in Friuli, but it's Tazzelenghe is much more fine, it's much more elegant in my mind, it's much more refined. And that's what really bothers me, and that's what drives me and all of the other producers, I can tell you this much, in trying to expand the production of Tazzelenghe and trying to reach out with the message of Tazzelenghe to everyone else, whether it's in Italy, Friuli, or the world in general, because Tazzelenghe is a great wine and has to be appreciated, and it bothers me personally that no one else is growing it. That's I think my problem with it.
I think the thing is that people need to understand that grape varieties, in this case, native grape varieties, disappear from a specific place, not because they're necessarily bad grape varieties, but because they don't meet the standards of the time. You will hear sometimes people say, native grapes have disappeared because they aren't very good. And that's not really true. You've got to consider that 100 years ago, 150 years ago, the standards of human beings were different than today's. The needs of human beings were different. 150 years ago, people were even more poor than they are today, and they needed to survive. So what they wanted, farmers for sure, were grapes that were not easily affected by disease, that weren't too sickly. They also wanted grapes that produced a lot. They didn't want grapes that would take a hard time to grow, because they had to survive. They had to grow as many grapes as possible, that gave as much wine as possible, and that way they could survive. And so that's why the grapes disappeared, not because the wine was good or bad, because back then nobody cared about how good the wine was, because they weren't going to pay for it. Today it's different. Today you want to make a good wine so you can charge more money for it and make more money. So today, something like Tazzelenghe is back in fashion. First of all, Tazzelenghe does not give big, fat, chocolatey wines, and therefore it was having a tough time even as recently as the 1980s and 1990s. And instead, it gives a very elegant, mineral, fresh, medium-bodied red wine that ages very well. Thank goodness that style is now back in fashion. People want elegant wines. People want refined wines. They don't want to drink jam anymore, and they don't want to drink oaked jam. And so Tazzelenghe has a right to come back. And it will come back because people are starting to plant it, if in small amounts, but it's starting to come back. And I close this discussion just by saying that remember that many, many, many of Italy's famous native grapes of today were completely forgotten and unheard of only 30 or 40 years ago. You all know the Etna wines, Etna Rosso and Etna Bianco. I can guarantee you for a fact, for sure, that in 2001 and 2002, nobody in Rome had ever known, tasted, or heard about Nerello Mascalese or Carricante. I know for a fact because I was working in the major Italian wine magazine, and they came and did a tasting, and nobody there had ever tasted a Carricante. Pecorino and Uva di Troia, all these grapes really had basically been forgotten. They hadn't disappeared. They were still there. The grapes were being used in blends, but nobody was making mono variety wines from them. And we have Mustazza with us, and that's a Sicilian winery. a grape like Perricone. Nobody ever made a Perricone monovariety wine. They used it to make Ruby Marsala. And back then, they didn't even know there were 3 different types of Cataratto and so on and so forth. So time changes and our standards change. And so something like Tazzelenghe, which risked extinction, thanks to the Tazzelenghe team, will not go extinct and will hopefully be planted more and more. And that's what we want to do with MicroMegaWines. We want to give our biodiversity a chance to shine. And then if you like the wines, good. If you don't like them, fine. But at least the wines are there for you to taste, and then you can make up your mind. Grazie, Fabio, and thank you to the Tazzelenghe team.
Grazie mille. Just one last thing, I forgot to mention who the producers of the Tazzelenghe team are. So that's us, Ronco Margherita, Colutta Giampaolo, Iacus, Vini Casella, Piticco, Le Due Torri, and Tenuta Beltrame and Marina Danieli. So it's 9.
How many are you now? How many are you now?
9.
And actually, without mentioning names, in that list, there are people who had never made a monovariety Tazzelenghe before, and it's really good to see that they've now joined the crowd. So you see, there is a positive result from all of this. So that's fantastic. It's exciting for me to see a winery that has never made Tazzelenghe all of a sudden is now making it. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
That's good for you.
Thank you, and thank you, MicroMegaWines.
And thank you to the Tazzelenghe team. Okay, so next we're going to talk about a different part of Italy, but a beautiful part of Italy nonetheless, Il Palagio di Panzano, and that's a mouthful right there, but it really tells you quite a bit. Ciao, tell us all about yourself.
Ciao, ciao. I'm Monia. I'm in Piccini. I own Il Palagio di Panzano. My winery is located in between Florence and Siena in this little charming village. And it's quite well known for Sangiovese, of course. Sangiovese is practically more known than the other grapes we have been talking about so far. In my case, my winery is very small, and we have at the moment 6 hectares planted. And some years ago, we decided with my husband to continue the work of our grandfathers, and we loved and decided to proceed with the pure expression of Sangiovese, to take in the bottle Sangiovese, which could express our land at its most. And so far we have only Sangiovese planted. All our products come from a pure selection of Sangiovese grape, and from our Rosato to the Gran Selezione, which is our key wine. And so this is a little bit our story.
So for people who are listening, Panzano is a hamlet. It's a fraction of Greve, and it's actually a very characteristic area for Sangiovese production, and it's an extremely high quality area for Sangiovese production. It's now recognized as a separate area for Chianti Classico production, and it should be so, because historically it's always given some of the most interesting and best Chianti Classicos of all. That's where there's a big amphitheater nicknamed the Golden Amphitheater or La Conca d'Oro, and it's a relatively warm area, and so Sangiovese ripens well there. In Chianti Classico, before climate change came, so as recently as 1970s and 1980s, Sangiovese never reached full maturity in 7 years out of 10. So now it is reaching maturity, and the wines are really outstanding and excellent. And Panzano really is an exceptional example of terroir, because we say Chianti Classico and we say Sangiovese, but in fact, the Chianti Classicos of Panzano are different from those of Castelnuovo Berardenga, and they're different from those of Gaiole. And so all the communes in the Chianti Classico denomination, just like the communes of Bordeaux, give you different wines. So a Margaux is a Bordeaux, as is a Pauillac wine, but Margaux and Pauillac give you very, very different wines. And the same thing in Burgundy, where Chambord Musigny is going to be very different from a Gevrey Chambertin. So with Il Palagio di Panzano, you have the opportunity to taste the wines of Panzano, which are certainly different than some other Chianti Classicos. It's not that they're better or they're worse, but they're different, and that's the beauty of wine. What is a Palagio?
Palagio means palace, actually. There are so many different Palagio estate in Toscana. Ours is the one of Panzano, and so it was actually registered in the Catasto Leopoldino of Florence. So it has a very ancient history, and it's in my family since 1965. Actually, my grandfather was quite clever to purchase the land because he thought it was a good land to plant vineyards. And in 1968, he started with the first Chianti Classico, but of course, very different style from what we are trying to produce right now. Different quality, different length of time in the bottle. For us, I mean, being in the center of Conca d'Oro, as you have mentioned, we are in a good elevation with a beautiful microclimate and a very different type of soil. At least we have found 9 differences in our soils. So being such a small piece of land, we can really get different style of Sangiovese, which is actually the main difference of the style of our wines. And so the peculiarity that is in our wine comes specifically from the different distinctions of soils.
Yeah, that's really cool. And again, I stress that it's easy to say Chianti Classico, but in fact, they're all very different. And the ones of Panzano are usually richer and warmer, but have a very good freshness and elegance. And that's what sets them apart. It's also an area, Panzano, where there are many, many, many famous Chianti Classico estates. And it's not by chance that a lot of the most famous Chianti Classico estates are in Panzano, because it really is a great area for Sangiovese. It's really a grand cru area for Sangiovese. And so very lucky and very smart grandfather, I guess. And if you like,
they have been my, I have grown up looking at them. I mean, my neighbors are just the famous wineries you have mentioned. So they have been quite an example in terms of quality and the respect of the territory. And, we are part of a very tight group of winemakers. At the moment, we count 23 wineries, and we all work together since 1995. I was very young when they started, and so they have been really the ancestors, those who have created a little bit of an example for the good winemaking here in Chianti Classico.
And for those people who don't know, Panzano is a bio-district. It's an area where all the estates there work biologically, organically, and it's really remarkable. It's the first bio-district of Italy. It actually served as an example for other districts. For example, the very, very famous Canubi hill of Barolo, maybe Italy's most famous vineyard area, is now also taken an example from Panzano, and is turning itself into a bio district as well. I think they have 1 or 2 people who still aren't participating, but everybody else is involved. And it really was following the example of Panzano. Panzano also, if you like wine travels, I got to say it, one of the most famous butchers in Italy lives in Panzano. And so if you like meat, you got to go. And I think you probably all know him, Dario Cecchini. And he's also opened a trattoria, so you can also eat. But it really is a remarkable piece of Italian lore, and you should go and enjoy yourselves there. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you at MicroMegaWines, and then I will also come and see you at the estate probably in the summer. I'm doing my best to see some of the MicroMega estates already before I've been in Italy. I saw the Vignaioli Canavesani this weekend, and Vittorio is going to be the last one to talk today. I will go see a Lazio producer coming up soon, but it's hard to see all of you at once, but I'll do my best. I'd like to come and see all your estates, and I love Sicily. My father was from Sicily, so I can't wait to go see Mustazza, which is the next estate that we're going to talk about. Benvenuto, tell us all about yourself. Prego.
Arrivo.
Bene.
Salve. Un problema, io l'inglese diciamo
non lo mastichi.
Sì, qualcosa a livello scolastico, e poi c'è il Google traduttore che...
Parla italiano. No, parla italiano, faccio la traduzione. So we're going to talk in Italian now, but I'll do the translation so you won't miss anything important. Prego, parla pure in italiano.
Ok, la domanda era? l'azienda?
Sì, racconta un po' l'azienda e com'è che vi siete dedicati a fare vino anche in quantità piccole. Cosa pensi del grillo, visto che per voi l'uva è importante ed è un'uva importante? Dici pure.
Sì, allora diciamo la mia è una famiglia di produttori di uva da vino da generazione. Io ho intrapreso questa mia passione, diciamo, io fino al 2012 lavoravo come responsabile tecnico, facevo revisione di auto, però la passione era quella di cercare di vedere a che cosa portasse l'elaborazione dell'uva che facciamo e soprattutto i profumi e i sapori che ci danno.
Quindi i tuoi prima vendevano le uve o vendevano vino sfuso?
Allora, prima facevamo vino, poi dopo vendevamo le uve nelle cantine qui della zona, poi diciamo io cercando di seguire la passione del vino, sono riuscito a mettere in bottiglia il grillo, il catarratto, il cabernet e un ancestrale.
Aspetta che adesso lo spiego perché è carina questa storia. So basically the Mustazza winery for the longest time, for many generations, was selling either grapes or wines, but wasn't really estate bottling. And it's with the advent of the new generation that they decided to cross a bridge and start to bottle wine from their local grapes, in this case, Grillo, Cabernet, an ancestral grape variety. I'm going to ask him what that is because of the passion that these grapes inspire and want to do something for the territory. Qual è l'ancestrale?
L'ancestrale è esce sempre sotto l'etichetta quasale che praticamente la linea quasale è quello che abbiamo detto, il grillo, il catarratto, il cabernet e per chiudere con un frizzante l'ancestrale. L'ancestrale è un vino frizzante non filtrato.
Fatto da quale uva?
È un 50-50 grillo e catarratto.
Con il catarratto tu hai il comune, hai il lucido, l'hai tutte e due?
No, bianco comune, cioè catarratto comune.
Ottimo. So they make the Grillo, they make a Cabernet wine, they make a Cataratto wine, which is the Cataratto Bianco Comune, the more common of the three Catarattos. And they also make an Ancestrale sparkling wine, and this is made with re-fermentation in the bottle, so there's lees in the bottle, and that is a 50-50 blend of Grillo and Cataratto Comune. E quante bottiglie fate? Quanti ettari avete voi?
Allora, come superficie abitata siamo a circa 15 ettari e come bottiglie siamo all'incirca, diciamo, tra quello che va in bottiglia, mediamente siamo attorno alle 15-20.000 bottiglie l'anno.
So just imagine this estate is 15 hectares and yet bottles only 15,000 bottles a year. So it really is a series of small batch, small volume wines. E cosa pensi di Grillo e di Cataratto, che sono due uve molto importanti nella Sicilia? Il Grillo, l'importanza si è cominciata a capire solo negli ultimi 10-15 anni, prima si usava per il Marsala, come del resto anche il Cataratto, ma non si pensava al Grillo come una grande uva, invece adesso si sa che lo è, e come del resto anche il Cataratto comune, che era stato sottostimato. My question was, you work with two grapes that historically were somewhat undervalued. They were both used for Marsala production, and nobody really understood how great Grillo and Cataratto comune could be. So what are your thoughts on these two grapes? Prego.
Allora, il Grillo, sì, diciamo, si è iniziato a crederci, diciamo, da una quindicina d'anni a venire verso qua. Però è un gran vitigno, cioè, rilascia dei bei profumi, della bella corposità, della sapidità, specialmente io, praticamente i miei vigneti sono in provincia di Trapani e sono in uno dei punti più alti del comune dove che sto io sono a Buseto Palizzolo, e fra l'altro sono dentro a un bosco, diciamo una bella situazione. Poi per quanto riguarda invece il catarratto è stato sempre denigrato in passato, perlomeno è stato sempre perché l'idea era sempre quella di fare la quantità, di cercare di spingere più le piante possibili. Invece non è così, bisogna ridurre le quantità, fare delle potature strette e cercare di avere delle piante sempre abbastanza verdi, cioè molto coperte di foglie, perché se il catarratto sta in mezzo alle foglie e non prende tanto sole, dà anche altri risultati.
È vero che se si pianta anche un po' più in altitudine, per quanto si possa fare, il cataratto comune guadagna ancora di più in finezza e dà vini ancora più minerali ed eleganti.
Sì, sì, sì. Questo si dice, il catarratto, diciamo, tra allevato in altitudine e in pianura dà due vini totalmente diversi.
È vero. Un signore mi spiegava che in realtà in passato si capiva poco il cataratto o i cataratti perché si piantavano ovunque, in qualsiasi posizione. Invece adesso sembrerebbe che il cataratto lucido bisogna di stare un po' in pianura o comunque più a basse quote perché sennò non produce niente, e il cataratto comune invece bisogna di stare un po' più in alto perché così conserva un po' più di acidità o come dici tu, con le foglie. E danno tutte e due dei vini veramente grandi, cioè alcuni vini, tutti parlano del caricante, va bene, però in Sicilia alcuni dei vini più spettacolari che ho bevuto negli ultimi anni sono proprio a base di cataratto.
Sì, ma anche prima, diciamo, quando si ammassava l'uva nelle cantine sociali, c'era del catarratto che veniva preso per tagliare altri vini, altre situazioni. Poi, diciamo, si sta cercando di valorizzarlo negli ultimi anni proprio.
Infatti. So basically he was saying that Grillo is, everybody recognizes over the last 10, 15 years that is really a great white grape variety, one of the best in Sicily, and can give wines that are both herbal and muskier, depending on when you harvest the grapes, but undoubtedly a really great classically dry white wine that is one of the best Sicily has to offer. Catarattos were always confused because there's at least two of them and probably a third, and they're called Cataratto Comune and Cataratto Lucido, and he works with Cataratto Comune, and Cataratto Comune needs to have a very big canopy because it needs to be protected from the sunlight. If not, the grapes drop their acidity and the wine is not as interesting. Another thing that helps with Cataratto Comune is if you grow it up in altitude, higher up you go, it helps conserve acidity and it develops more mineral and more refined aromas and flavors. So Cataratto Comune, when it grows up higher up and lower down, gives two very different wines. And so that's very, very important. At Mustazza, they're located really the vineyards within a forest. So there's a real ecosystem and a beautiful biodiversity that helps create a microclimate and a habitat that is fostering better quality grapes and ultimately better quality wines. Sei contento? Sta andando bene l'azienda? È un progetto, lo so che ti appassiona, come sta andando?
Diciamo ancora si fatica parecchio, però dico, non avrei mai pensato di venire a Verona, diciamo, prima. Poi, così leggendo, ho visto che c'era questo progetto di MicroMegaWines che è partito l'anno scorso e sinceramente vi ho contattato perché penso che sia il posto giusto per una piccola azienda.
No, è essenziale perché le fiere ormai hanno costi anche forti per delle piccole aziende e d'altro canto le fiere hanno un costo, non è possibile perché è veramente dispendioso metterle in piedi. D'altro canto è anche giusto dare una mano, e io sono molto grato al Vinitaly che mi ha permesso di farlo, di dare spazio e visibilità a delle piccole aziende che sono molto in gamba, molto brave e producono degli ottimi vini. Io mi ricordo benissimo quando Gianni Bruno, che è l'area manager di Vinitaly, prima del Covid mi chiese, Ian, che facciamo per la fiera, per fare qualcosa di nuovo, per dare un impulso? E ebbi questa idea e Gianni è stato bravissimo a permettermi di metterla in piedi, perché chiaramente non è un ritorno così importante, però è un ritorno importante di immagine e di visibilità, non solo per la fiera, ma anche per i produttori e i territori italiani. È molto importante che il Vinitaly, che rappresenta il vino italiano, si faccia in quattro anche per i piccoletti, perché in fondo l'Italia è un paese di piccole industrie, di piccole unità familiari che mandano avanti delle piccole aziendine. È la nostra forza in tutti i settori, non solo quello vitivinicolo, e quindi è giusto che anche in campo vitivinicolo noi celebriamo e diamo una visibilità a questa azienda. Sono proprio contento, guarda, sono felice di venire a conoscerti, poi verrò giù in Sicilia a trovarti. Io adoro tra l'altro la Sicilia, come dicevo, mi manca tanto il couscous trapanese, abitando in Cina, poca chance di mangiarlo, e non vedo l'ora di tornare. Tra l'altro il mio dolce preferito è la frutta martorana o il marzapane, quindi guarda, non mi stanco mai. Il latte di mandorla quanto è buono. E vabbè. D'accordo, grazie, grazie. We'll see you at the MicroMegaWines. We'll see each other at MicroMegaWines. And then last but not least, ultimo ma non ultimo, Vittorio Garda. Vittorio Garda is representing the association of the Jeunes Vignerons du Canavesano, come direbbero i francesi, i giovani vignaioli canavesani, the young wine growers, winemakers of the Canavese area. The Canavese area is a very specific part of Piedmont. I will let you, Vittorio, tell us more about that. But the important thing for those who are listening to us, the Canavesano in Piedmont is a beautiful area that is associated with two really famous Italian wines, Parema, which is a Nebbiolo wine, and Erbaluce di Caluso, which is available in many different styles. So anyways, I will let Vittorio tell us all about it, and I'm really excited to have the Giovani Vignaioli Canavesani at MicroMegaWines this year. Prego, Vittorio.
Oh, thank you very much, Ian, and thank you, because for us it's a very powerful opportunity, and thank you for from all the association. Okay, so let me introduce my association. For this, the description is very short, but I want to answer of 3 questions. So, what is Canavese, and who we are, and what kind of wine do we produce? So Canavese is in the north of Italy, in the north of Piedmont. We are attacked to the Piedmont Alp, and we are in the north. This Alp rise to 4,000 meters of altitude, and in the south, in the west, and in the east, we have immense accumulation of rocks, so the morenic hill, that protect the area Canavese and maintain a particular incredible microclimate. No? And this is very important for us because we have 14 degree average. The average of the temperature is 14 degree, so it's very perfect climate. And also the soil is very incredible because it's totally different to respect the rest of Piedmont soil, because we are rich in sandy soil, not a lot of clay, rich in sandy soil, very acid, 4 to 5 pH of acidity, so it's a very acid soil, and rich in mineral. This kind of soil is very perfect for produce a wine elegant and vertical. So wine that for me are a wine of this moment. No, who we are? We are an association of 24 new producer of wine. Of 39 years of age, and we are located in everybody in Canavese, and every producer of the association are artisan. So it's very important for me, because for us artisan it's one person that follow all the chain, so from the grape production to wine production to the trade, and so it's not easy, but we are very hard guys. And the last question for me is what kind of wine we produce. We produce everybody wine from one grape, and every grape that we use are local and historical grape. In the first Nebbiolo, and the Nebbiolo that we use is Picotendro Nebbiolo, but for many producers, Picotendro is not a real Picotendro, because it's a very old genetical Nebbiolo, and this so it's a very old plant, okay, because the vine more old that we use have now 80 years, 90 years, so very old Nebbiolo. and also Herbaluce, and many different kind of native grape. For example, in Neretti. In Neretti, we have 5 different clones of Neretti, but also Chateau's, but also Vernassa, but also Croatina. So we have a lot of different red grape. For the white, we use only one kind of white, so Herbaluce. And we love to produce many different kind of wine with Herbaluce, from sparkly to still to aged to ancestral to sweet, for example, passito. So thank you very much, Ian, for the opportunity.
No, are you kidding? It's great. I mean, for us, it's fantastic to have you here, because the Canavese is a really exciting area, and one that can really develop and grow further, right? So I think the thing is that we'd like to showcase at MicroMegaWines is your wines made with the Herbaluce variety, which maybe a lot of people abroad don't know, but in fact in Italy it's garnering a lot more attention, with more and more producers even outside your area now planting it. And of course, your Nebbiolo wines are very important. Carema is one of the most famous Nebbiolo wines made. Everybody knows about Barolo and Barbaresco, but there's also Lessona, Gemme, Gattinara, Boca, Sizzano, Fara, and of course Carema. And in the area, you've also all these other native grapes you have, so they don't have to be pure Nebbiolo wines, because historically these other grapes grow, and they're beautiful old vineyards of old grape varieties, and we don't want to get rid of them just because we want to make a 100% Nebbiolo wine. That doesn't make sense. So every area makes a different Nebbiolo wine. Also, you mentioned the soil pH where you are is very different of that of the Langhe, where they make Barolo and Barbaresco, where the soil is alkaline. So again, it's going to be a very different expression of Nebbiolo wine in Carema as opposed to everywhere else. And I think it's exciting for people to understand what the importance of something like MicroMegaWines is this area where the Canavesani are making their wines. I'll take the example of Carema just so you understand. Back in 2012 or 2013, when I visited the area, there were only about 16, maybe a little less. There were maybe about 12, 13 hectares left.
Yes,
really,
perfect.
and really most of them were being farmed by the very good social co-op. Carema is a very good social co-op. And there were very few, if there was only one producer making a Carema wine, another one was probably making one, but was actually buying wine and just labeling it. But today, thanks also to the interest in wine territories and making wine territories reborn, associations like the Giovani Vignaioli Canavesani are made up of people who are starting to bottle their own wines from their own grapes. And so now we don't have just one estate and one co-op making the wine, but we have 8, 9, 10 estates starting to make, for example, Carema wine. So you see, there is a growth, there is a progression of a wine that really risked disappearing, and instead now is slowly starting to take off again. And it's really beautiful. I really recommend you visit the Carema area, for example. It's remarkably beautiful with these mountain vineyards. It really is a mountain Nebbiolo. Now that's the Carema side, but in fact, as Vittorio was saying, this association and the whole area also represent some stellar white wines. For example, the sweet wine of Caluso, the Caluso Passito, was long one of Italy's most famous and historic sweet white wines. But they don't just make the Caluso Passito, they make, of course, the classically dry Herbaluce di Caluso wine, and the sparkling wines are fantastic, both in the Charmat Martinotti method or by classic re-fermentation in the bottle in the manner of champagne. So there's a lot, and it's not just that, okay? There are some people who are making wines from Freisa and other grapes. So it really is a remarkable part of Italy. The wines are fantastic. I was just there this weekend for one of their shows and really had a great time tasting through a bunch of wines. And I'm really happy that you're coming to MicroMegaWines. Thank you very much. Huh? All right. So good. So I hope today has given our listeners a chance to understand the biodiversity, not just of Italy, but of MicroMegaWines, because we go from Sicily and Grillo and Cadarato, and we go to Tuscany, where we have Sangiovese, and we go to Friuli, where we have Tazzelenghe and many other wines, and of course, Piedmont with the wines we just spoke about. So really, I'm really enjoying MicroMegaWines. I think it has a good message to deliver, and I think people will enjoy the wines. The wines are really very good. So when you come to the stand, you'll be able to taste them and also meet the producers, and hopefully we can all grow together. Thank you very much. Grazie mille. Ci vediamo al Vinitaly, non vedo l'ora. A prestissimo tutti. Grazie davvero.
Grazie
Grazie.
mille.
Bravi.
Grazie.
Bravi. Non chiude? Lauretta? Lauretta non chiude. Ha chiuso Lauretta?
Laura non c'è.
Neck, una bella canzone, sai? E vabbè, noi continuiamo a parlare, poi taglieranno. Fabio, ti ho mandato una mail, hai visto la mail che ti ho mandato?
L'ho vista.
Hai visto, ve lo posso dire anche agli altri, una delle cose che cerco di fare per voi, cerco di farvi conoscere anche all'estero, non solo in Italia, e si dà il caso che un importatore cinese molto importante mi ha chiesto delle raccomandazioni per un'azienda friulana. Ha bisogno di un'azienda friulana perché hanno perso quella che avevano, e allora sono ben felice di dare, ho dato 2 o 3 nominativi, però sicuramente ho dato anche Fabio di MicroMega, quindi non so, poi mi dirai se siete interessati o meno.
Assolutamente sì, anzi grazie in realtà, perché in Cina, con la Cina non so perché, ma non siamo mai riusciti a trovare
non vi siete presi.
rapporto, ecco.
Non gli piace il fricò a quelli, che vuoi che ti dico? Aspetta, che qui proprio sto sparendo io di luce proprio, non capisco perché. Oggi proprio non mi funziona niente.
No, non è...
Povero me. Non capisco.
Però grazie, perché è utile, ecco, è assolutamente un bel contatto.
No, se posso aiutare, anche l'anno scorso abbiamo avuto le aziende, una siciliana di pantelleria, a cui abbiamo trovato un piccolo importatore in Cina, però è già qualcosa, sono piccoli loro e quindi va bene così. E dai, pian pianino speriamo di aiutare tutti voi. Poi mi direte quando ci incontriamo.
Ma anche il MicroMega, cioè io l'anno scorso il MicroMega me lo sono più che ripagato con gli ordini e con i clienti che ho trovato in fiera. Quindi
sono contento, grazie. Questo è
un bel risultato.
Mi fa piacere questo, bene. No, ma siamo molto seguiti. Sapete, uno dei motivi per cui facciamo queste registrazioni in inglese è proprio perché vogliamo che gli operatori del Nord Europa e del Nord America, dove tra l'altro sono anche molto seguito per via dei miei trascorsi a Decanter e a Vinos di Galloni e International Wine Cellar di Tanzer, quindi mi seguono e quindi spero che anche quest'anno le cose andranno al meglio, dai, spero sia per il Palagio che per Mustazza, chiaramente per i canavesani. Poi mi direte, ci conosciamo meglio. Io sarò lì tutti i giorni, tranne quando devo guidare le masterclass, ma se no ci sarò, quindi già fin da domenica mattina ci si vede. Vi convoglio delle persone da voi, ma soprattutto mi interessa convogliare me stesso per assaggiare tutto. E sapete, io sono un avvinazzato più che un scrittore di vino, quindi io uso la scusa che devo scrivere per bere la mattina alla sera, quindi...
Bene, Ian, ti aspettiamo alle 9, una verticale di 9 Tazzelenghe, che alle 9 del mattino è la cosa più bella del mondo.
Sì, ma veniamo anche noi però,
Sarò lì, sì, bravo Vittorio. Guarda che a te piacerà il Tazzelenghe, perché non ricorda un biolo montanaro. E, no,
alle 9.
Tutti, però la mattina presto, con la bocca da caffè, poi è spettacolare.
Poi vediamo se riusciamo a fare qualcosa anche per crescere ulteriormente, però siamo già contenti così, dai, adesso vediamo. Speriamo di fare un grande MicroMega 2, così possiamo fare un MicroMega 3 ancora più bello.
Sicuramente.
Il ritorno! Poi MicroMega colpisce ancora! Come la Pantera Rosa, no?
MicroMega 2 la vendemmia.
La vendetta di MicroMega e via dicendo. D'accordo. Ciao ragazzi, mi ha fatto piacere.
Ciao, grazie.
Grazie mille.
Ciao.
Ciao a tutti. Ci vediamo a Vinitaly.